Imagine trying to fight a war when your adversary can, literally send a text message to a supersonic missile mid-flight.
Right, just seamlessly altering its trajectory.
Yeah. Completely bypassing the world's most advanced electronic jamming technology.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. And, that is no longer just some dark hypothetical. It's the reality on the ground right now.
Exactly.
Today is Monday, March 16th, 2026.
Wow, yeah.
And we are exactly 2.5 weeks into a massive, ongoing global conflict.
2.5 weeks feels like longer.
It does. On February 28th, right after the Geneva nuclear talks completely collapsed, the U.S. and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury.
Right, that huge multi-domain strike against Iran.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to really unpack this highly detailed strategic assessment from the Global Review, authored by Dr. Fareed Novin.
It's an incredible piece of work.
It is. The document details this profound geopolitical shift, basically how China and Russia have transitioned from quiet diplomatic partners to active physical military facilitators for Iran.
Yeah, it's a dense, just incredibly revealing document. It really forces us to completely reevaluate the whole architecture of modern proxy warfare.
For sure.
Because the technology transfer happening right now, it fundamentally alters the balance of power in the Persian Gulf.
Okay, but real quick, before we dive into those technical mechanisms, I want to speak directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, this is a crucial point.
Because this source material covers an active, highly politically charged, and honestly deeply tragic conflict, we need to establish the ground rules for this deep dive.
Right.
We will take absolutely no sides today. Our goal is strictly to impartially analyze the facts, the data, and, well, the strategic realities presented in this document.
That's the facts on the ground now.
Exactly. We are here to help you understand the geopolitical tectonic plates that are shifting beneath this conflict. Nothing more, nothing less.
The situation is simply too volatile for anything other than a cold, objective analysis of the capabilities currently on the board.
So let's establish what that board actually looks like right now. The opening days of this conflict escalated with, just terrifying speed.
Over 900 strikes in the first 12 hours alone.
Yeah, 900. And the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in the opening salvo. Plus Iran's immediate response of firing around 420 missiles across 9 different countries.
Right, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand that massive eruption of violence, you really have to trace the timeline back to the 12-day war of June 2025.
Oh, right, the strikes on the nuclear facility.
Exactly. U.S. and Israeli aircraft struck Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, and that event acted as a massive catalyst. It basically taught Tehran that their existing defensive posture was totally insufficient.
So they needed a total overhaul.
Yeah. What we are seeing today is the kinetic result of a strategic pressure cooker that has been building for nearly a year. Iran has just been rapidly seeking out new methods to ensure their military survival.
And the physical tools allowing them to survive and strike back, well, that's where this assessment gets incredibly specific.
Very specific.
Because the Chinese connection here is just impossible to ignore. The report heavily focuses on the CM-302.
Right, the export variant of China's YJ-12E.
Yeah, the supersonic anti-ship missile.
Yeah.
And the operational specs on this weapon are just staggering. It flies at Mach 3.
Which is what, about a mile every second?
Basically, yeah. It has a 460-kilometer range, and most importantly, it maneuvers in its terminal phase, like right before it hits.
And that terminal maneuvering is really the critical variable here. Because when a U.S. Navy destroyer tries to shoot down an incoming threat using its standard SM-6 interceptors, it relies on complex math.
Right.
The interceptor's computer calculates exactly where the enemy missile will be in, say, 10 seconds and flies to that point in empty space to meet it.
Like trying to hit a bullet with a bullet.
Exactly. But if that incoming Mach 3 missile violently shifts its trajectory in the final few miles of flight, those mathematical predictions just fail. The interceptor flies to a spot where the target no longer is.
Which creates a massive geographical dilemma for the U.S. Navy. The report actually calls it a strategic ticking clock.
It's a great term for it.
Right. Because when weapons capable of defeating your interceptors are suddenly sitting on the Iranian coastline, it warps the entire geometry of the naval battlefield.
It forces carrier strike groups into a corner.
Yeah, like the USS Abraham Lincoln, currently operating in the Arabian Sea. They have to make an excruciating choice.
They can stay far away at a safe standoff distance.
Right, but that severely limits how many combat sorties their jets can actually fly. Or they could move in close to project power and risk multi-billion-dollar aircraft carriers against missiles designed specifically to sink them.
It is textbook area denial strategy. But what makes this assessment particularly alarming is how Iran is actually sustaining this arsenal.
Right, because didn't they lose a lot of their manufacturing?
They did. During the strikes in 2024 and 2025, a significant portion of Iran's solid propellant manufacturing facilities were just turned to rubble. Yet they are still firing.
Okay, let's unpack this. The report details a massive clandestine solid fuel reconstitution effort.
Yeah.
It's basically like a bakery whose ovens were blown up, but someone is secretly shipping them industrial dough mixers and premium flour through the back door.
That is the perfect analogy, because making solid fuel requires incredibly specific, heavy-duty industrial equipment.
And liquid fuel's just too slow, right?
Exactly. Liquid-fueled missiles are a logistical nightmare. They take hours to fuel up on a launch pad, which makes them sitting ducks for U.S. satellite detection.
Right, easy targets.
But solid-fuel missiles are essentially packed with a stable, rubbery explosive. They can be rolled out of a cave and fired in minutes.
And this is the supply chain the document exposes. It highlights the arrival of 2,000 metric tons of sodium perchlorate via the port of Bandar Abbas.
Which is a vital oxidizer.
Right. It provides the oxygen that allows the solid fuel to burn fiercely in the vacuum of the upper atmosphere.
And alongside the chemicals, they're receiving those hardened planetary mixers.
The industrial dough mixers from the bakery analogy.
Exactly. Massive, specialized machines necessary to blend the highly volatile fuel components safely without accidentally triggering an explosion.
And those planetary mixers are actively being hidden deep inside Iran's subterranean underground cities.
Yeah.
The report also identifies dual-use electronics flowing in from CETC, that's the China Electronics Technology Group Corporation.
A heavily sanctioned, state-owned defense conglomerate, by the way.
Right. And then there are the Wankel rotary engines being supplied to upgrade Iran's Shahed 136B drone swarms.
The inclusion of those Wankel rotary engines is just a brilliant, albeit totally lethal, piece of engineering.
How so?
Well, traditional piston engines vibrate heavily and they run really hard. A rotary engine has far fewer moving parts, providing a much higher power-to-weight ratio.
So they can carry more explosives.
Yes. The drone can carry a heavier payload, fly significantly further, and crucially, operate with a reduced acoustic and thermal signature.
Making them much harder to detect.
Exactly, until they are right overhead.
I do have to push back on the source material here, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
In early March, the Chinese Foreign Ministry officially publicly denied the CM-302 missile deal. They stated it was unequivocally not true.
Right.
So why does Dr. Novin's strategic assessment treat Chinese involvement not just as a possibility, but as a concrete operational fact?
Well, we have to differentiate between diplomatic theater and the realities of global intelligence.
Fair point.
In international relations, a press secretary at a podium issuing a denial does not somehow overwrite physical evidence.
Right.
The intelligence community, open-source satellite analysts, intercepted maritime shipping manifests, all of it points to the physical movement of these materials.
The hardware is physically crossing the border.
Exactly. Acknowledging that reality doesn't require us to call anyone a liar. It simply requires us to trust the telemetry and the physical supply chain over the press releases.
Makes sense. But, a Mach 3 missile with advanced solid fuel is essentially just an expensive explosive lawn dart if it doesn't know where it's actually going.
Very true.
And historically, the U.S. has relied on electronic warfare to ensure those missiles just splash harmlessly into the empty ocean. So how is Iran suddenly bypassing the world's most sophisticated electronic defenses?
This is arguably the most consequential revelation in the entire document.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. During that June 2025 12-day war, the U.S. and Israel deployed massive GPS jamming operations over Iranian airspace.
Just completely scrambling the signals.
Yeah, jamming is essentially shouting static over a radio frequency so loudly that the receiver can't hear the actual signal. It was devastatingly effective. It caused a 70% failure rate for Iranian munitions.
Yeah, and 70%.
Yeah. And Iran absorbed that lesson immediately. Fighting a modern war while relying on an American-controlled satellite constellation is basically tactical suicide.
So their response was pretty radical.
Very.
On June 23, 2025, Iran literally deactivated GPS nationwide for its military assets and migrated its entire targeting architecture to China's Beidou 3 navigation satellite system.
Right.
Or BDS-3.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The capabilities they unlocked by doing this are just staggering. The report highlights a feature unique to Beidou 3 called Short Message Communication, or SMC.
And that feature fundamentally changes the nature of long-range strikes. Standard GPS is a one-way street.
Right, the satellite just broadcasts the time and location.
Exactly, and your device passively receives it to figure out where it is. But SMC allows two-way data transmission.
Which means?
It means the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps can maintain an active data link with their munitions. They can literally send coded text messages to a missile mid-flight up to 2,000 kilometers away.
So seamlessly shifting it to a higher priority target dynamically.
Exactly.
Which is terrifying for a radar operator on the ground. But wait, if the U.S. military so successfully jammed the GPS frequencies in 2025, why can't they just point those same powerful jammers at the Beidou satellites?
Because the architecture of Beidou 3 is designed specifically to resist that exact tactic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It utilizes a military-grade signal known as B3A. This signal employs incredibly complex frequency hopping and navigation message authentication.
Okay, what does that actually mean in practice?
Think of it like trying to listen to a specific radio broadcast, but the station changes its frequency 1,000 times every single second, and you don't have the schedule of where it's jumping next.
Oh, wow. So current Western jamming tech simply cannot lock onto the signal fast enough to block it.
Exactly.
And not only is it resistant to jamming, but the precision is terrifying. The report explicitly states this B3A signal offers centimeter-level accuracy for authorized military users.
Gun-to-meter level.
Yeah. This enables a complete shift in Iranian military doctrine. They no longer have to rely on area saturation.
Right, no more firing 50 unguided rockets at a massive airbase and just hoping one hits the runway.
Exactly. Precise navigation means surgical lethality.
When your weapons don't fail and they arrive exactly on a set of coordinates, you can target the actual dish of a Patriot missile battery or a specific communication node.
So you need way fewer weapons to achieve a much higher operational impact.
Precisely.
Precision requires coordinates, though. You can have unjammable navigation, but if you don't know the exact latitude and longitude of an American destroyer moving at 30 knots in the open ocean, you still miss.
Right.
So who is providing the map?
This brings us to the intelligence web. The report refers to it as the God's Eye view.
God's eye.
Yeah. And it represents the most direct, active involvement of foreign powers in this conflict. Data, not explosives, is the most lethal commodity in modern proxy warfare.
And the centerpiece of this data collection is the Liaowang-1. This is a colossal 30,000-ton Chinese space tracking vessel operating right now in the Gulf of Oman. It projects a surveillance envelope of 6,000 kilometers and is being escorted by a Type 055 cruiser.
Which is widely considered one of the most advanced, heavily armed surface combatants on Earth.
Yeah. And that naval formation isn't just passively watching the horizon, it is actively processing the entire electromagnetic battle space.
The Liaowang-1 has the computing power to track up to 1,200 simultaneous air and missile targets.
1,200?
Yeah. It is mapping the conflict in real time, and it is integrating its data with Russia's operational eye.
Right. Moscow is providing the raw, high-resolution satellite imagery, the literal overhead photographs, and precise, updated coordinates of U.S. warships and air defense batteries.
And we no longer have to rely solely on intelligence leaks to confirm this trilateral cooperation.
Right. Just 2 days ago, on March 14th, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi appeared on live television and explicitly confirmed that Russia and China were providing active military cooperation.
He basically said the quiet part out loud.
He really did. However, playing devil's advocate with the source material again, the document itself concedes that civilian automatic identification system trackers show the Liaowang-1 hadn't even left its port in Shanghai as of March 9th.
Right, the AIS transponders.
Yeah. So how can it be the all-seeing eye in the Gulf of Oman if public data says it's parked in China?
It is an entirely valid challenge, but it really highlights the reality of the fog of war and electronic obfuscation.
So they're faking the data.
Yeah, when dealing with top-tier military assets, civilian tracking data is highly malleable. We're likely looking at sophisticated transponder manipulation, often called AI spoofing, where a ship broadcasts false coordinates.
Pinky.
Or, alternatively, the vessel currently operating in the Gulf under heavy naval escort might be operating under the guise of a scientific research ship.
Like the Ocean Number 1.
Exactly. Regardless of the name painted on the hull, the undeniable operational reality is that a massive Chinese data processing node is feeding real-time targeting telemetry to Tehran.
And the ripples of that telemetry are expanding way beyond the Middle East.
Yeah, absolutely are.
Because Iranian proxy forces have recently utilized these exact, precise targeting capabilities to launch strikes on Cyprus and Greece.
Yep.
And as members of the European Union, those strikes triggered Article 42.7 of the Treaty on European Union, which is essentially their version of NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Clause.
It is actively dragging European nations into the conflict as direct belligerents.
Which is a massive strategic headache for Beijing.
Huge. China relies heavily on the European Union for its export markets, and they desperately want to maintain those vital economic ties.
Right.
But because Chinese intelligence and navigation architecture is the connective tissue enabling the missiles hitting European infrastructure, while Brussels and Paris increasingly view China as inextricably linked to the attacks.
Which brings this massive military conflict right to the doorstep of the global economy. This axis of enablement hasn't just changed the tactical balance of power, it is actively suffocating global trade.
The math laid out in the assessment is pretty grim.
Yeah. On March 4th, the Strait of Hormuz was effectively closed to commercial shipping.
And to contextualize that bottleneck, 20 million barrels of oil pass through that narrow strait every single day.
20 million.
That represents 27% of all the maritime crude oil traded on Earth.
And that oil is now trapped. The price per barrel is currently sitting at $104, and the IRGC is openly threatening to push it past the $200 mark if the West attempts any further military coercion.
Global markets are understandably panicking.
Goldman Sachs is actively raising recession probabilities for the U.S., and Europe is staring down severe, immediate economic contraction.
Yeah.
But this creates a bizarre paradox for China. It's like China handed a guy a sledgehammer to defend himself, but now that guy's using the sledgehammer to smash the very pipes that deliver China's own drinking water.
What's fascinating here is that Beijing is really trapped in profound dilemma of its own making. China imports roughly 70% of its oil from the Middle East. From a purely economic standpoint, they are arguably the single biggest victim of the Strait of Hormuz closing.
Wow.
The energy shock hits their industrial base harder than anyone else's. And just today, President Trump explicitly called on China to join an international U.S.-led coalition to reopen the strait and secure the shipping lanes.
And the response from Beijing was a muted, uncomfortable silence.
Because taking action forces their hand. If they join the U.S.-led coalition, they actively abandon Iran at its moment of maximum peril.
Completely shattering their credibility as an alternative partner for the Global South.
Exactly. But if they stand by and do nothing, their own domestic economy suffers immensely from the soaring energy costs.
And they're already grappling with severe structural headwinds and a real estate crisis.
Right. They are paralyzed by the contradiction in their own strategic goals.
So with the global economy suffocating and an incredibly heavily armed standoff in the Gulf, how does a paralyzed system like this actually resolve itself?
Well, the report concludes with a Bayesian game-theoretic analysis of the escalation scenarios.
Let's break down how the Pentagon is actually calculating the odds here.
So Bayesian game theory is basically a mathematical framework used to model how players update their assumptions as new information becomes available.
Okay.
In this conflict, the United States currently operates on a baseline assumption that China is a pragmatic actor. Pentagon strategists assign a 75% probability to the idea that Beijing cares more about preserving its economy and global trade relationships than getting sucked into a direct shooting war over Iranian territory.
And based on that 75% assumption, the U.S. feels confident enough to draft aggressive military options.
Right.
For example, the report outlines a scenario where the U.S. decides to launch a massive amphibious assault near Bandar Abbas. The goal would be to forcefully secure the Iranian coastline, eliminate the anti-ship missile batteries, and forcefully reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Now, if you believe China is purely pragmatic, that assault makes strategic sense. But the Bayesian model shows how quickly the math changes. If the U.S. occupies that coastline, they threaten something China views as existential. Securing Bandar Abbas would sever the international north-south transport corridor.
And directly threaten the infrastructure of China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Exactly. In Beijing's eyes, a U.S.-controlled Iranian coast isn't just about oil, it represents total strategic encirclement.
Oh, wow.
So the moment those Marines land, China's internal calculus instantly shifts from pragmatic economic preservation to regime survival.
So what does this all mean?
It introduces the ultimate nightmare scenario detailed in the assessment. the credibility trap.
Yeah.
To protect its massive overland trade routes from American encirclement, China might feel forced to authorize the active use of their YLC-8B anti-stealth radars.
Which are already physically positioned inside Iran.
Right, and those specific radars are the exact countermeasure to America's most advanced aircraft. The YLC-8B operates on ultra-high frequency, or UHF, bands.
Why does the frequency matter so much?
The physics of UHF are what matter here. The stealth geometry on a US F-35 or a B-21 Raider is designed to scatter short, high-frequency radar waves.
Okay.
But UHF waves are long and lazy. They don't care about the sharp angles of the aircraft. They bounce off the overall physical size of the plane. These radars can literally see the invisible planes.
Oh, man. So we arrive at the tripwire. Imagine a scenario where the U.S. detects one of these advanced Chinese UHF radars painting an American stealth bomber.
Right.
To protect the pilot, the U.S. launches a preemptive strike to destroy the radar dish. The missile hits its target. But that highly complex radar system wasn't being operated by an Iranian conscript. It was being manned by an undeclared Chinese volunteer technician.
And the legal, political, and diplomatic distinction between a proxy war and a direct global conflict vanishes. The exact millisecond. American munitions killed Chinese military personnel operating Chinese equipment.
That is the tripwire.
It instantly escalates the conflict beyond the Middle East, dragging Washington and Beijing into a direct kinetic exchange.
It is a terrifyingly plausible sequence of events that requires only one minor miscalculation to trigger.
Just one.
To recap the monumental shifts detailed in Dr. Novin's report, the strategic landscape is permanently fractured.
Yeah.
China and Russia are no longer just watching from the sidelines, issuing diplomatic condemnations. Through the unjammable Beidou navigation frequencies, the clandestine solid fuel supply chains, and the God's eye intelligence architecture, they are the structural connective tissue keeping Iran in this fight.
They absolutely are.
The era of unchallenged American electronic and information dominance in the Persian Gulf is definitively, undeniably over.
Which leaves us with a profound conceptual shift to grapple with. If a regional power like Iran can effectively blind American stealth and navigation capabilities simply by migrating to off-the-shelf technology provided by an allied superpower,
Right.
what does this mean for the future of warfare? If the electromagnetic spectrum is the true new battlefield, the most vital question going forward isn't just who has the biggest explosives or the fastest kinetic weapons.
What is it then?
It's who actually controls the invisible airwaves they have to fly through.
A completely new reality for you to ponder as this situation continues to unfold. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking beyond the headlines and keep questioning the surface-level narratives of these shifting global tectonic plates. We'll see you next time.